The Shadow He Never Met. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to Stories by Maya, where imagination meets mystery, love, thrill, suspense, and the unexpected. Your support means everything. Every night, something moved in Arthur Hale's house, and every morning, he woke up knowing only one terrifying truth. Whatever walked those halls, walked with his steps. The town of Elmsridge slept early, wrapped in quiet traditions and thick fog. In the center of this silence stood Arthur's small, aging wooden house. It creaked with the wind and shivered with time, much like Arthur himself, a retired history teacher with silver hair, gentle eyes, and a loneliness heavy enough to fill rooms. Arthur had a habit. He wrote everything down, not because his memory was failing, but because things around him didn't make sense anymore. Chairs weren't where he left them. Doors he locked at night stood open in the morning. A window he latched would be found ajar. The staircase light, always turned off before bed, glowed mysteriously when he woke. Sometimes he even saw footprints by the back door. And worse, on certain nights, he felt a whisper against his neck, low, soft, and undeniably close. But whenever he searched the house, he found no intruder, no signs of break-in, nothing but stillness. So he documented everything. Each night he checked every lock, every latch, every corner, and wrote it all down in a notebook titled Night Observations. But every morning, the house told a different story than the one he recorded. One night he noted the front and back doors locked, the kitchen window latched, all lights off, and the bedroom rug straightened. In the morning, the back door was unlocked, the kitchen window open, the hallway light glowing, and the rug dragged halfway across the room. Someone was entering his home, someone walking around him while he slept. Or worse, someone living with him, hidden, patient, silent. Then one evening, his daughter Emily called. She sensed something off in his voice. "Dad, you sound tired," she said. "Are you sleeping well?" Arthur hesitated. "Not lately." "What's going on?" He didn't want to frighten her. "Just restless nights." "Dad," she pressed, "please call me if anything gets worse." He promised, though he doubted he would. She didn't need to carry his fears. That night, Arthur woke from a nightmare that felt too real. A dark hallway, a figure at the end, whispering his name with cold breath. He woke, sweating and trembling. He wrote it down. "Dream of someone calling my name." Sounded very close, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a memory he never lived. Finally, desperate for answers, Arthur bought a small, motion-activated camera and set it up in the hallway. The next morning, he opened the recording. A single clip. Timestamp. 3:17 a.m. The footage showed an empty hallway, then a shadow drifting into frame. A figure. Barefoot, dragging one foot, moving slowly. It stepped into a sliver of moonlight. Arthur froze. It was him. He watched himself wander the house with eyes closed, touching walls, opening cabinets, searching for something unknown. The clip ended with his sleeping face leaning inches from the camera, as though sensing it despite being unconscious. Arthur sank into his chair, shaken. He was the intruder. He was haunting himself, but even that didn't explain everything. The open windows, the strange movements, the whispers. So he placed the camera again. And the next morning, he saw something that turned fear into terror. The video began at 2:51 a.m. Again, Arthur walked through the hallway in his sleep, but this time he wasn't alone. A second figure followed him, taller, thinner, completely faceless. It moved behind him like a shadow with purpose. It didn't drift like smoke. It stepped. It watched. It leaned close, lowering its head toward Arthur's sleeping shoulder. A whisper crackled on the camera's audio. Not Arthur's voice. Something else. The clip ended abruptly. Arthur stared at the screen, unable to breathe. He wasn't just sleepwalking. He was being followed during it. He saw a doctor the next day, but even she hesitated to believe the shadow was real. Blaming stress, she suggested unresolved trauma, but Arthur knew trauma couldn't whisper in the dark. That night, he barricaded his bedroom, locking the door, propping a chair under the handle, and tying a bell to it. Around 3 a.m, the delicate ringing woke him. The chair lay toppled on the floor. The door was wide open. He hadn't heard the fall, hadn't heard the lock turn. A whisper traveled through the hallway. "Arthur." Cold air slid across his skin. He reached the living room and saw his notebook open on the floor. He hadn't left it open. Inside was a new sentence written in shaky handwriting. "Stop following me, Arthur." His heart collapsed into silence. Why would he write that to himself? Or was it meant for someone else? Was he following the shadow? Or was the shadow following him? Determined to understand, he searched his attic the next day and found a dusty box labeled Lucy, his late wife. Inside were her journals. In one entry, a sentence stabbed through him. "Arthur sleepwalked again last night. He kept asking, 'Where is he?' He doesn't remember anything in the morning." Arthur felt the ground shift beneath him. He had sleepwalked years ago. His wife had known. He had forgotten. His mind had hidden it from him. Or something had made him forget. That night he set up 5 cameras throughout the house. "Tonight," he whispered, "I face whatever is haunting me." At 3:12 a.m., the cameras recorded everything. Arthur walked through the hallway, eyes closed. The shadow appeared behind him. But tonight, it stepped closer. It placed a long, cold hand on his shoulder. Arthur, still asleep, whispered, "I've been looking for you." The shadow tilted its head, and the audio crackled with a chilling response. "You found me long ago. You just forgot." Arthur collapsed to the floor. The shadow crouched beside him, tracing something invisible along his spine. It whispered again, "You left me in the dark. You tried to bury me. But I never left. I am the part of you that remembers." Then the shadow stepped into the dim light. Arthur saw its face. His own. Younger. Colder. A part of himself he had forgotten. Or abandoned. Or feared. A shattered memory made flesh. Arthur awoke screaming. The house shook. The lights flickered. The shadow dissolved into smoke. Silence returned. The next morning he called Emily. With a trembling voice he told her everything. She was quiet before speaking softly. "Dad, after Mom died, you had dissociative episodes. You asked us not to tell you. You didn't want to remember anything painful." Arthur felt his throat tighten. The shadow wasn't an entity. It wasn't a ghost. It was a broken piece of his past. A version of himself he'd lost to grief and trauma, returning through his sleepwalking. Healing took time. The sleepwalking didn't vanish immediately. Sometimes he still heard whispers. Sometimes the shadow appeared faintly in mirrors. But he no longer feared it. Now, when he walked unknowingly through his house at night, he whispered into the darkness, "I'm here. I remember you." And the shadow no longer followed. It walked beside him. Thank you for listening to this story on Stories by Maya. If you enjoyed the mystery, suspense, and emotion, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more thrilling tales. Your support keeps the stories alive.